Welcome to season 4, episode 8.
Where's the energy?
We started recording this 20 minutes earlier, and Kobe just is not here yet.
I started.
Kobe.
Mark was here. I started choking on the Thieves in our smoothies that we get.
That was an
morning.
Eeyore level introduction.
Eeyore's my dude, though.
Yeah, Eeyore's a homie.
Yeah,
but,
come on. You're just bullying me now.
Well,
you
Eeyore-
can't bully Eeyore. That's the worst.
Well, I wouldn't bully Eeyore,
He's
but I
just
would
saying
bully.
Eeyore wouldn't make a good podcaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, God.
I actually thought I was going to joke
Okay.
here. Mark did not offer to give me Heimlich or help out.
My suggestion was that smoothie that's making you choke from too many seeds, try and wash the seeds down with more of the smoothie. Probably not the best advice.
It's still full here. I'm gonna give it another shot, but if I die right now, Azael, give my reports and honors for me.
I will.
Okay.
I'll report the smoothie for you. If
Thank
you
you,
die.
thank you.
And you know, as much as we're all friends, you know, Kobe dies choking on the smoothie. Mark moves up the totem pole.
I get the middle seat. We bring in someone new. He says, "Hey guys, send your submissions."
Yeah,
That's why
exactly.
he was like, I keep drinking the seeds. They'll like knock each other out of your throat.
Yeah.
He still knows he's one man away from Jad. He's got to get some buffer in there, you know, get someone new in so
claw
that's the person.
I'm just trying to take everything. I'll be on this or that soon.
Yeah, he's got to take over everything Jad did.
Well, speaking of moving over content, MSI announcement has been moved
nice.
over. Hey, you like that?
Oh, by the way, season 4, episode 8 of the dive.
There you go. I like how you give a little jump out of your seat. Too.
Yeah, thank you.
Pop up.
Little whoop.
MSI has moved. I mean, it's not really a big surprise though, right? With coronavirus taking over the world, basically. They are postponing it to July for now. There'll be updates. It is going to be weird, right? Having MSI so close to Worlds, it's going to be in summer, and then you'll have Worlds shortly after. But honestly, you can't have an event, before then. Right now, so everything around the world's getting canceled right now.
Yeah.
Because you really can't risk it.
There are some things that are clearly just way bigger than League of Legends. I mean, you know, from what I've been hearing, the Olympics is likely to get canceled. You know, all kinds of sporting events, concerts, everything is getting canceled. You know, in Italy, I read something like 16 million people are in quarantine. Obviously, there's massive quarantines in certain areas in Asia. So it's obviously just at a certain point where you can't risk it. You can't risk the players' health. You can't risk the staff and the production side's health, and you can't risk the fans' health. You know, to have all this gathering, in one place, so many people. So hopefully, with the delay, you know, fingers crossed that things are in a much better spot and it can be run as like a normal event. You know, I don't know what it'll look like if coronavirus is still a big issue and that timeline is kind of coming up. Then there's nowhere else really to move it to, right? So the next step, my guess is, I'm not involved in this process, but would have to be canceling it because Worlds would be shortly after. There would be nowhere else to bump it to. So hopefully things improve. Hopefully we can still have the tournament, but at least fans I've seen be pretty understanding with the announcement of the LEC finals being moved back to Berlin and things like this, because it is just so much bigger than esports.
Yeah, and if you want to try and put a positive spin on it, at least hopefully there's a better lead up time for some of the leagues and stuff.
Yeah.
If it's in July versus what was it before May, I think. Where like LPL hadn't been playing, and there's already going to be this sort of asterisk on the tournament anyways, I think for a lot of people, where it's like, well, LPL, they didn't even play for 3 months beforehand. So hopefully if you can try and look at this in a positive light, it'll be a more fair tournament when it does happen, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's as best I can do.
Yeah. And we'll have more updates as the situation changes as well. All right, I am just right out of the gate reporting the smoothie. I wasn't planning on this. I didn't write it down. I have another report, but
Okay.
Can I have your other report? Because I don't have another one.
okay, yeah, you can have my other one.
Okay.
My other one was gonna be for all of Eika's teammates and everyone from EU that has called him Eika for years.
Okay, I'll take it from here.
Okay, go.
Okay, as broadcasters, we just use, what other people tell us is the correct name. And what has happened with a number of players
We're
over
mindless
years-
sheeple.
We're not mindless sheeple. This is what everyone's calling them. And this person has never corrected them in the 8 years. And then we always get these like one interviews where we're like, hey, how do you say your name, by the way? And then they say something different than what was been said for those 8 years or whatever. And then we're like, wait, what do we call you? And then we start asking people around them, and we're like, hey, what do you call your teammate? And they say, we call him Eika.
Yeah.
And then we go, okay, that's what it is. And it's like, no, it's Eika. And then we speak for a living, and it's hard to rewire your brain after you've been saying it for 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
It was kind of a report where I'm like, okay, it is on me. Like I should be able to switch over.
I accept no responsibility.
But it's also, all right, I played bad. I lost my team the game, but I'm still rage reporting this guy for tilting my ass.
Yeah.
So I still throw
I mean, I even asked Zavagine, and Zavagine's like, yeah, it's Eika.
Yeah.
And Zavagine's known him for years, and is
he's
also
known
friends.
for years. He's friends.
Yeah.
Like.
So I'm like, it's not like an accent thing or something.
And some players just straight up changed their like Uzi to Uzi I for a little bit, or whatever it was.
Well, and sometimes it's also
he was like flip flopping around.
The person who is telling you, when especially at international tournaments, people don't all speak the same language. People have sometimes heavy accents, right? So someone telling you what someone else said their name is through the lens of a heavy accent can sometimes be confusing, right? And that, and language barrier can sometimes come into it. Here, that's clearly not the case.
Yeah.
But we all thought it was Eika. Everyone calls him Eika. His teammates call him Eika. His coach calls him Eika. But it's Eika. And we're changing it to, well, it never changed, actually. It was always Eika.
It was always wrong, but we're out here to correct it.
Yeah.
Good report,
Eika.
Mark. Good
Thanks,
report.
dude. It took me a long
Good
time
job,
to that
Mark.
one.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you for coming up with that.
What you got?
I am going to report TL and TSM for making it impossible to power rank these teams. They're both having, TL has this one death weekend where they're popping off with tactical, and you're like, God damn, they must have got it all together in practice, and Double's going to come
stocks,
back in.
Right?
Yeah, time to rebuy.
No, don't talk about that.
I like how we're all in this together the whole season.
Yeah,
Terrible
oh,
choices.
God.
But you think, all right, finally, they're here. They have arrived. And then they lose the CLG. They look like absolute trash. And the TSM, they're on the flip side of it, We're thinking, okay, this is a great team. They're going to be challenging Cloud9. Then they start chain losing. They lose the CLG last week. And you're like, but what if they're ass? And then they come in this weekend. They beat Cloud9, beat FlyQuest. Make yourselves easier to power rank. What are you guys doing?
Not ass.
What if they're really good?
Top two teams.
I like how you're flaming teams for being good. Damn it, TSM. Stop being good. You're confusing me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that one, especially since I got my C9 stocks ripped away this weekend.
I had one that I loved that you didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah, no one told me.
Oh, so I'd heard it from a few different people, so I
well,
kind of
we kept it intentionally.
Oh, see, no one told me that it was a secret from Mark. So
you could have spoiled it.
I totally could have spoiled it. I just assumed that he was told early on, like I was. So it was just pure luck that we hadn't talked about this, because I would have been like, ha. Didn't get your stocks down. Me and be like, what?
There were a couple of things where if I was paying, it was like foreshadowed if I was paying attention. There was some good plotting by the author.
Looking back, it's way easier to see all the foreshadowing.
Yeah, where someone said something where it's like, that you only have this many, like this stock. So I said, all in on Team Liquid. I thought I was going to have like 16. And it was like, you have like 8 or something. I was like, oh, maybe they're just like
non-transferable.
Yeah, I was like, maybe they're non-transferable. Like, I was like, whatever. And there's like a couple of things like that or something that were like in the week that.
Yeah, there was this other small
plot
thing.
twist. You don't have them at all.
Other small little hint where someone said, "Mark, they're not real. You don't have them, Mark."
Yeah, really subtle.
Very subtle. It would have been hard to actually get. I'm gonna honor Mark Z over here for his Liandry's Morello's math, actually taking the time to kind of do some math on that, and obviously the stats team helping you out too. I just think it's good to have some numbers on it, and I know that the debate is kind of raging on, and that there's also discussion on like where the argument should be and what the original discussion was. I don't really care that much about all that stuff. I just think it's good to see something that is supported by numbers and has clear examples alongside them, so people can use this whether or not they're involved in the other discussion. Like, I don't really care about that stuff. Just you can watch the video if you're interested and see, oh, okay, this is a situation where one item would be good, this is a situation where another item would be good, and then kind of use your own common sense to figure out which would be good in your own games, which I think is just helpful for people.
One of the big things with I would say Liandry's probably has the most gray area of any item in the game because you go, oh, it's stacking damage on Madness. There's burn damage that gets reapplied on extra ticks of spell damage. Your combo comes out at different points. So like it might start at 0 stacks, then go to 1 stack, then go to 2. And over the course of that, like that's ramping. Was the target CC'd. You know, if you start getting into like the nitty gritty breakpoints, it's like every second they're CC'd is 1% extra burn of their HP bar. And like every ramping second is an extra 2% of your combo. And so like high health targets will benefit more from the burn. And at some point, like the only way you're going to get the actual number is like if you could get into the game and have it like spit out the number. But like doing it by hand, you're always going to have this gray area. And I try to take as much of that into account, and I was talking to someone last night on Hotline League where they're like, in one of the examples, you didn't calculate the health of burn increase from a stun target. And I was like, well, I did. I just didn't say in the video, he has 1400 HP. You're getting 1% extra burn because it goes from 4.5 over 3 to 7.5 over 3. So it goes from 1.5 per second to 2.5 per second. I start getting into this and I'm like, it was like 9 damage that I didn't calculate in. And I have like these buckets built. And so I was like, it wasn't enough to move it up a bucket. And it's like, I did take it into account, but like, how do you represent that? You know, because there's no way to like, it's hard to build a realistic thing. So I tried my best. And I think if you want to really get into nitty gritty, there's some points where you're like, ooh, you maybe underestimated this, but a lot of those were approximations.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a loaded honor because there's a lot packed into, that video and all these situations. I think a lot of people are focusing really heavy on trying to be perfectly correct in all scenarios, or even like the majority of scenarios, which I don't think should be a takeaway with a lot of these item discussions. There are situations for a lot of different purchases, right?
Totally.
And I think that especially for most players, you should be looking at just classifying the strengths of each of these items and then trying to situationally figure out what should I get in this position, right? If you have a lot of long range and poke and there's CC on your team, Liandry's is going to be great, for the burn and for applying this to multiple targets without fully committing. If you're looking for full 100% bursts, flat penetration into death cap and stuff like that is going to go a long way. So,
yeah, I think like even in the CLG game that happened this weekend, Pobelter was on Syndra, built a Liandry's, enemy team has an Ornn, you have a Trundle, and what's optimal there, Kobe? The Ornn has 200 something MR, but then it gets shredded by the Trundle, and then he has a high HP pool, and like, does anyone actually know? Which item is optimal there? Like, the pro can't do the math of that situation on the fly, and so if I spend 5 hours playing or doing this math, I could tell you. But like the pro at that time is just like, well, I'm hitting Ornn the most, so I build a Liandry's, and like I might go in there and then find later, you should have done this. But like, to your point, the pro is just covering what he thinks is the most common situation he's going to face in that game.
And I'd say general PSA: don't buy stuff that you're not going to use. And that is applicable to your regular life, Azael, as well.
But what if it makes me feel good?
Well, then I say buy it, actually. Okay. So, if there's no healing on the enemy team, but, Grievous Wounds makes you feel good, then go ahead and buy you some Grievous Wounds because treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
You're
worth it. All right, what's your guys' honors?
My honor is LA parking.
Oh, yeah.
This morning I woke up and there was a tow truck in front of my car. Apparently I did not pay off my parking tickets fast enough.
How long was not fast enough, by the way? Because I feel like sometimes I've waited like a month or two.
It's as far as I can tell, a bit of a combination of how long and how many.
How many do you have?
Let's not get into specifics. Let's not get muddled down in the details.
Like, well, I mean, it's only been 14 years. I have 37 tickets.
It's always funny because you get the story through Mark's perspective. In the morning, he's like, I was a little bit late on, kind of lazy on paying off some of my parking tickets. We do some investigating. It turns out there's $400,000 worth of tickets.
Mark is just a hardened parking criminal.
That's true. I'm like, it's in the red a little bit. We'll see what happens. I live life on the edge. Well, apparently I shouldn't have been doing that so much, or just paying them off when I get them.
I'm so curious how much the total.
I'll tell you off air.
Okay.
So either way, the guys there, and they hadn't started jacking my car up yet. So I must have gotten there like right when the tow truck arrived.
Yeah.
And so they're both just standing around. I was like, hey, you towing that car? And they're like, yep. And I was like, that's my car. And I was like, is there anything I can do? And like, we just had, like, they were really nice.
I wish they would have just been, well, that sucks for you, buddy.
I feel like if my car was beginning to like, if they actually had it like loaded up on the machine, I'd probably be doomed, but I got there just in time.
That's cool.
And they were like, they were all really nice. He was like, yeah, if you can pay it right now somehow, you can call, you can do this. I was like, let me get my phone out. And I started doing it online. And I was like, here's the receipt. And then he checked on his phone to see that like it got updated. And he's like, yep, it's all gone. And then they were like, we have to ask the tow truck guy because it's ultimately like him who came out, and they get paid by technically me who's getting fronted by the city because they were just talking
like
at
per
this point.
car that gets
so like the city calls towing companies. Yeah. I get charged, but in the meantime, they're kind of like fronting the bill.
Because you have to pay to get your car back.
So during this time, they're like, by the way, your tire pressure is low. And the tow truck guy starts filling up my tire pressure. We're all just standing around my car talking about like parking fines and how this stuff works.
This is like a sitcom.
No, yeah. I was saying this is actually so crazy to me that it worked out this easily for you. I have never had any luck with the bureaucracy or the court system growing up. Like, it is always convoluted, and they will not let anything
somehow
pass.
Have great luck with police and parking enforcement and these kinds of things. So there's like, I have a couple stories where I'm like, that guy was totally uncompassionate, was just like down to the letter of the law saying screw you and whatever. But a lot of times I have interactions like this where I'm like, I think the thing is you just have to be like, I'm an idiot. And if you kind of are just like, I'm an idiot, I'm really sorry, I'm stupid, what can I do? Is there anything I can do? Usually I feel like they're like not jerks.
Did you guys either watch the Chappelle Show? It reminds me of one where he has this joke, and it's just a guy driving down, and he's like, I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know I couldn't do that. And he pulls him over for like drinking and like having guns in the car and stuff like that. And then he looks over at Dave and he's like, it's funny because I did know I couldn't do that. And it's just like this sober.
Yeah, I mean, the officer was like, did you know you had this many parking tickets? And I was like,
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I knew I had a couple, but I didn't know it was that bad. I mean, I didn't know it was that bad, to be fair, but I knew I had some parking tickets without saying anything.
I'm just so curious about anyway, you can tell me more later.
Yeah, anyway, so I just want to give them a shout out to, I got to drive my car here on full tires.
Are you guys homie now?
No, I didn't.
No, their names?
I didn't catch their names.
You didn't add them on Facebook, Instagram?
I have a LinkedIn.
Yeah. No. Anyway, shout out LA
Maybe
Parking
they're watching.
And whatever tow truck company is in Culver.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
They do things differently here in LA. Or maybe it's just because we're in the future now. But City of Oakland never gave me any breaks. My honor was for Broken Blade. He was a close runner-up for Player of the Week. TSM Azael is talking about how they're just throwing out the predictions at the windows. They beat the top two teams. Bjergsen, I think, deserved Player of the Week, because only really him and Jensen can play Zillion, I think, to have that sort of effect where you can actually take down Cloud9 and play it that well. Plus his Aurelia game, he had that extremely well-played team fight. But Broken Blade did so much work on setting up all these fights for TSM, and their team had to put so much work in to beat the top two teams. So honor for him as well. I don't know if it's more prestigious to get a statue and Player of the Week or an honor on the guy.
It's debatable.
It's really...
It's not. I don't want Kobe words. I want that statue. He's the best set in the league, though, I think.
That's what I was going to say. That was the best set play I've seen for sure. He had so many good ultimates to set himself up for face breakers, which was, I think, the key part of so many of their team fights. And he was comboing really well with Biofrost, too, especially, I think it was a Recon game.
Yeah. And even just flashing in for a lot of them, too.
He was playing really, really well. So definitely impressed there. 10.5, it's been out for a bit, but it's coming to Pro Play this next weekend. Maybe we can just touch on a couple quick things. For me, when I was reading the patch notes here, and I'm like, okay, this is the one where they're trying to make top lane better, and so they're buffing some items, and they're also making, turret plates worth more, and, kind of range champions and multiple champions don't do as much damage to the turret in top lane, but like solo guys can do, more, make more gold. So what my initial thought process is like, all right, who kills turret plates fast and uses the items that got buffed. And I'm like, Fiora, I'm in there. So I've been playing some Fiora because, you know, rushing Ravenous, pretty standard. And like the active radius got buffed on Ravenous Hydra, got 6% more lifesteal. And you know, get back to 160 gold per plate. Plus, Fiora just crushes turrets because your Q works on turrets and your E reset plus the E crit. So I was playing some of that. Fiora's win rate has gone up and feels incredibly strong. I'm not sure, you know, like the Blade of the Ruin King thing was kind of interesting to me because it's a big buff on the current health. It's like 4% more current health damage for melee champions. But I was trying to think like what melee champions really want to build it. Renekton
is what I immediately thought of, and I was like, have you ever seen a Bork empowered W from Renekton?
Oh, true.
Triple hit.
Because it annihilates people. So and he can even build both of those if you want to go a build that's like the please don't build grievous wounds on me build. Just get both Ravenous and Bork.
I was also thinking because Jax hasn't built Bork for a long time, but people used to go Triforce Bork, right? That was kind of the standard, and then it moved away from that more into like the tanky builds
and cooldown reduction.
Yeah,
because cooldown reduction's so effective for him.
Yeah, for sure. But like I think I know TF Blade does like the Black Cleaver plus Triforce, but I think still most people I see just do like Tiamat, Triforce, and then like Sterix and stuff, right? But it is interesting. It's just that Tiamat is so important on so many top laners, and if you're building Tiamat plus another core item, then getting Bork in there too feels difficult because I feel like, you know, if you're building Tiamat, that kind of takes up the same like item slot as what you would be going for the Bork in. But it is interesting just trying to think about like who would make the most out of these.
Yeah, I mean most top laners, even the carry ones, at some point need to start building defenses and resists. Like Jax will go Triforce and Sterix, and then like usually like the last couple items are like
you need to talk to Captain Flowers more.
In pro play, a lot of the times the build paths on things start going more defensive for the third and fourth item. So to your point, like it does feel like you have like your first item and a half or two items can be damaged.
It's your luxury item, right?
Yeah. So maybe it just starts taking some other places. Like if the damage is that strong on melee, that you're like, well, I'll take a little bit worse wave clear on Tiamat.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I just imagine Mark coming up over my shoulder and being like, your first two items can be damage items, but
you can only have two.
And I'm like, Mark, please.
Then you got to eat your vegetables and build a Randuin.
Yeah.
The other thing I immediately thought of was my priority on Rift Trail went through the roof after this patch because, all right, what can kill turret plates well, Azael? Well, Riftdale can kill him really well.
True.
She guaranteed gets two of them. And I'm always just updating and reevaluating like my different priorities on all the neutral camps and neutral monsters and lanes to gank and stuff. And Riftdale has shot through the roof. So it's actually been super successful for me to just in solo queue, ignoring a lot of the early dragons, rushing Rift Trails, actually returning to top lane ganking. So the desired
swap earlier.
In solo queue, nobody swaps. So the desired effect, I guess, is working on me for the champ designers because I'm going top more because I want my money. I want to get paid. And the other thing is I started playing AD Warwick from Parnelli X posted his guide on Reddit.
I was watching you play a game of it, I think.
Yeah. He posted, it was over an hour video. It was like an hour and a half video on Warwick. There was only literally one little tip out of it that I got. That it was a really cool video.
You watch an hour and you learn one thing?
Because, I mean, it was a cool video.
Is this your way of flexing your own brain? You're like, yeah, I watched an hour video from this, like, this really detailed, but I knew all of it already.
So let's be honest, Warwick isn't that complicated.
Yeah. it was funny because it was like, oh, yeah, in the outplays. And almost all the outplays are just like, you hold Q.
And you follow them.
Yeah. When they're like doing some stun or something like that. Or you play really dangerously, you get low and try and, make use of your passive and bait people with your shield and
your
red smite.
Yeah,
exactly. So I took it one step further with the buffs, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna build Titanic Hydra anymore. Let's go with the please don't build grievous wounds against me build. Playing Warwick, who has a bunch of healing already. Full AD Warwick, by the way, so I have to make use of my healing or else I'm going to die. And then I also build Ravenous Hydra because Parnelli started doing it. I saw it in his solo queue as well. And it's really fun to do. You can have like some YouTube moments where, oh, he got so low, we think we can kill him, and then you like 1v3 a bunch of people out heal him and stuff. But it does feel real bad.
I'm to build Blade of the Rune King
Yeah,
on
that's
it
what,
for all the
that's what I was
scratches.
gonna say. I thought you were about to say Bork for the on.
So I haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
Because you basically get Tiamat out of your starting build because you can start Rejuve Bead with Warwick.
Yeah.
And then you easily get it like a cheap Tiamat, and then you upgrade that. You build Warrior.
And I assume you want that for clear in the jungle
exactly.
too. Yeah.
That's the thing, man. Tiamat's too good. It just pushes Bork out of melee champions.
I've been petitioning for a Tiamat jungle item for a long time, and the feedback from everyone has always been that would be too OP. But I'd rather have a warrior that is not just flat attack damage. It like builds out of Tiamat, and you get a similar like efficiency upgrade for the jungle item. I don't think that's not a jungler is going to join my cause.
Everyone's like, why would we do that?
And I'm like, because it's great for me.
The other thing that's interesting to me is the item changes with Spectral, Sickle, and Spellthiefs. They're making it so ally has to be in range to get the benefit of the tributes and stuff, which is going to kill what's been happening a little bit. Kobe's got another seed. I like how you reported it and then kept drinking it.
I think it's time to report yourself. Time to take some of that blame.
I was gonna say that, but I'm very stubborn, and I really like these smoothies.
They are so delicious. Good, but it hurts so bad.
I thought it was just a one-time thing. I'm gonna throw it away. All right, it's good conversation.
Yeah, control yourself.
Smoothie.
So anyways, there's like top Janna that's been seeing play and stuff, and Jat and I were talking about this a little bit on the JLXP about
water.
You okay, buddy? Yeah, okay. That we were like, okay, how much of these top supports and enchanters' power is in this item versus just the fact that having an enchanter who's getting real gold influx in levels power? And we were kind of on this the same page that like this is a nice little thing to get extra wards and be able to play this play style, but those champions should still be viable. If you are someone who's doing top Janna, like you can just not build this and support and still just CS normally. And then it's not as good because the warding and all that stuff is a big benefit, but you're still going to get, we were basically like, yeah, the real thing is getting Athenes and Ardent and all that stuff that makes it broken.
So one thing I would say, just kind of as a counterpoint, and I think this is something that you guys are maybe overlooking, is that it's not always that easy to get all the farm as some of these champions. So one of the things that I think actually makes like Janna Top, for example, really strong is that when Janna Top is playing with the Spellthieves, it hardly even matters if you freeze on her because she doesn't have to actually CS. She just has to stand in range of experience, which is really easy to do as a ranged champion. So it's much more difficult to punish someone who doesn't need to actually access the minions for their gold, right? Like they just need to hit you from range with slows and disengages. And it's like, so that I think is actually a really big deal. But where I would agree is there's some of the champions like, for example, Zillion Top is being played a lot in Korean Challenger. Like if you're watching TF Blade's stream, you've probably seen, him dealing with a lot of that stuff. And people are doing like, everything from PTA to Glacial Augment, Nasher's rushes to Executioner's rushes, and like all these different things on Zillion. And you can be very effective with those Enchanters top. But I do still think this is a huge nerf because there's way more champions that can zone you off farm and punish you when you go for CS than champions that can just stop you from being inexperienced.
Right, and you do need to adapt your playstyle. So we're talking about like, if you're building Doran's Ring, 2-point Q and Janna will let you, if you do 2 of them on the wave, full clear the wave. And it's kind of hard to stop a Janna from just like pressing her tornado from like 1,000 units away. And it's just like whoosh, and it clears the wave. So you do need to adapt your playstyle. It is, you can't, like in pro play, people will push you off your turret constantly, like you're saying. But once you get those 2 items, which are relatively cheap items, it's kind of like, well, we're good now.
Yeah, this was my problem back when we had the old Klepto and Huni was running
Frostfang, Klepto.
Yeah,
Zillion.
Frostfang, Klepto, Zillion, like those types of things.
Yeah.
And you basically remove the part of the game that is laning for normal top laners, and you don't have to CS.
Yep.
And you get to be like, haha, I just get to, poke you over the course of the lane and get a bunch of money. I really don't like those types of play styles because as much as, you want diversity and all these different ways to play the game, that seems a bit too far and very frustrating for the person playing against you because they're just like, you don't have to do the homework that I have to do here. You're picking up minions and fighting over waves like normal.
And that's what's hopefully going to happen with this change is like you can still play Janna top. It's a little worse, but now you have to actually CS, which is hopefully, you know, if this change is like Jet and I are thinking that you can still play Janna top and it'll still be good. But you have to learn the last hit now.
It'll be interesting. I think we won't see any Janna top in pro play, period.
I think pro players are also a little bit just more like, I don't want to have to actually learn the laning.
They definitely are, but you also get punished way more heavily in pro because your team is more likely to play around it, right? So it's like in the tornado situation, you put a couple points Q, you tornado the wave once. If the person is holding the wave then and standing in between you and the wave, most of those minions will all get denied from your wave, right? So you like the CS will actually just be going away before your tornadoes back up if the person is zoning you. And things like that I think are more likely to happen, like a permafreeze or they stack the wave and then push you off and you're low and like things like that. It's more exploitable. But I do think that there's like Janna is more extreme because I think Janna's dueling power and stuff is way worse. But like Lulu and Zillion and some of these champions I think are actually a lot harder to prevent that stuff from. And maybe people actually just make the transition towards that. Because I do agree that enchanters in general can be really good with gold.
Yeah, I also, when you reach out to these players, they don't want to play these champions. They're just like, I'm playing it because it's 55% win rate.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's almost a sigh of relief as soon as they do drop down. You're like, oh, good. Don't have to play
My CSD looks so bad now. It ruins their stats for the season. One game on these champs.
Stats have already been really messed up with, you know, Senna being an 80 carry. And then all of a sudden, oh, this 80 carry's got plus 440 CS per.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I do like players who will pick this stuff up though, because I mean, Janna, before these nerfs, when I was looking at 10.4 win rates, it was 58% win rate or something like that, maybe even higher in Diamond. And like that is so far above what every other champion was that it's like you're kind of trolling if you're not playing this and you're playing to win, right? Like if it has that good of a win rate, you should be playing it. So I do respect. Yeah, like I respect Wonder and some of the other players that are bringing it out and trying it because it's worth a shot. Right? When it's that strong, even if it's going to get nerfed in the next patch, play what's strong. And I do think as much as people kind of complain about the fasting Senna and that sort of style, I think it's interesting to have, like, Senna is just being played as a support, and it's just giving us more non-standard bot laners, right? Like, because the Rumble and the Volibear and the Taric and all these things that are farming, that's actually just like playing the bot lane spot, and it's just a ranged support, right? That's like really all that's happening there.
That's why I said like 2 episodes ago, and you guys were like, no, Sven's not the support. He's the carry still. This is fasting Senna is playing support Senna, and then you're just switching because that's the 80 carry champion, and you have your 80 carry player on it. And you guys play me, and you refuse to let me go through
this was something about like you're saying Vulcan is like the bot laner now, or I don't know. It was something I can't remember what it was.
We were trying to figure out.
I was saying that because the Senna player is basically playing support Senna, and so the person
I thought
next
it was something to do with
player
of the week and stuff or something like that.
I
check the tapes. We gotta check the tapes.
I'm not flip flopping. I'm saying if you're the 80 carry and you pick Senna and you're still doing all the 80 carry things except CSing in the first 20 minutes of the game, I still say you're an 80 carry.
Yeah, the skill set is still the same. Yeah. But I do think I would like to see teams experiment more with this because like I've been playing some and people are doing mostly just playing like a melee support but just giving it farm. That's kind of the standard go-to. I played some Zyra Senna with the Senna support and me just playing a farming Zyra. I was like, this is cheap. Like they can't even access the wave. They're getting poked out so much. There are some really strong mage plus Senna bot lanes that you can play that I would be excited to see people experiment with. I'd even be interested to see, you know, things like it probably wouldn't work as well because I think part of it is the souls help you really scale very well. But like I'd be interested to see like Ashe with Spectral Sickle plus some of these champions and things like that. It would be interesting to see it tried.
Yeah, I mean this is the design intent with trying to get creative and design a support as a carry is a similar thing when they're like groundbreaking with Pyke. Oh, we're gonna have an assassin as a support.
Sion Senna. Remember how you put bombs with Zillion and you would shout the minions into them? You do it with her E. You just E the front line.
The root?
Yeah. And then in the meantime, Sion's just farming up and being that annoying Sion. Now it's not in top lane, it's in bot lane.
There you go. It's brilliant.
I'll take my check, whichever pro team plays this.
We have LCS coming up this weekend. TSM this past weekend took down Cloud9, first team to actually beat the undefeated Cloud9. How surprised were you guys? How much does this last weekend change your opinion both of Cloud9 and of TSM?
Didn't change my opinion of Cloud9 pretty much at all, especially because yesterday, Monday Night League, they just returned to form.
The clapping.
Back to the old slap and back to business as usual. Blabber looked amazing on the Pantheon. They had Niski's roaming around as well. It's just, I think it was just a really well played game by TSM. So if anything, it does change my mind about TSM. And we already talked earlier in the show about how we've been trying to pin down some teams to make our lives easier. But I do like that, with all of the experimentation that's going on and teams, trying to find their style and their way to get wins here as we close in on playoffs, it makes it really exciting approaching playoffs and having still a weekend where on the first day we had literally all upsets in all of our games. So it definitely makes it really exciting for me. And I am looking forward to see if TSM can actually find some consistency, because they have been trying so much stuff and about half of that stuff has been failing, but then half of it looks really good. And Bjergsen talked a lot about confidence, and I think confidence is a really big theme for me for moving forward towards playoffs. He had a really good interview with Ashley Kang. We're just talking about playing against Cloud9, how other teams have approached it, and how if you play teams like that, or like in his experience playing G2 or Fnatic or something like that, and you let them get away with 40, 60 plays, that they shouldn't really be able to just walk in and ward with one person or do something dangerous and gain these small advantages. That's how the really great teams also get this kind of pseudo-free ride sometimes in their games and get a bit easier bonus because of the players that you're playing.
Yeah, FlyQuest talked about this in their loss to C9. We were talking to Wild Turtle about it, and he was like, yeah, I felt like we just were scared to fight them sometimes because, they would step forward and we would think they're being smarter than they are or something. And it's like, no, they're just trying to scrap us. And that's what happened to the top lane in that TSM game over and over again. The other thing, too, is we always keep talking about their drafts and how much or at least for me, feel like their success is tied to what they're doing, regardless of whether it's a good draft or not, is like practice on it. In these games, they still were throwing wrinkles in, like the Aurelia mid in the... What are you laughing at? Why are you smiling?
Just their success is tied to what they're doing.
No,
I know what you meant. I didn't say anything, Mark. You brought this up.
I'm going to honor Mark because Azael always calls me out for making faces at him. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. Good job, Mark. Azael making faces down.
Shame him. Shame.
I was just smiling, and I knew I was.
That's what I felt like.
Yeah. Well, but like I think he was legit calling out, but I specifically wasn't saying anything because I knew it was a stupid point, and I was just laughing for no reason. I'm like, that's funny. And then Mark's like, what is it? I'm like, it's something dumb.
Spit it out.
Now we're derailed.
Spit it out, Azael.
All right. So the point is, TSM's been doing wildly different drafts time and time again. These are a lot of very standard drafts
like
with
an
one
11-year-old laughing at a poop joke or something.
One little wrinkle.
Hell yeah.
From mid lane.
Wrinkling it up.
Anyways, Mark's point was really enhanced by this edition.
It was.
I'm not really quite sure.
We start the show 20 minutes earlier and it comes off the rails.
I'm dying the entire time. It's honestly my fault too.
That's true. It's all Kobe's fault. I think we can all agree. But yeah, no, I'm on the same page as far as I think Cloud9 still looks super impressive. It didn't. The thing I liked about Cloud9's loss to TSM is it didn't feel like one of those games where you're like, oh, they just played like shit. You know what I mean? Like those don't feel as exciting when it's just like, oh, that's you won, but like also they kind of just gave it to you, And Cloud9 played, I think, well. TSM, I think, drafted better in that game and also played better in that game, which is why it was so exciting. And I would say for me, TSM has really shown such high highs now that you clearly know they have the potential to challenge for a championship. And that's just going to come down to, can you actually replicate that level of play consistently, excuse me, because Cloud9 clearly can replicate their level of play, and week in, week out, they are slamming teams in 30 minutes. So, if these two teams face off in a best of 5, right now, at least, I'm like, yeah, TSM at your best, you could take a game, but can you bring that same level and can you bring that same kind of quality of draft 5 games in a row? Because that's what it would actually take to take out Cloud9 right now.
Yeah. I honestly think this was a win-win situation, even for Cloud9, because they're first place anyway.
You're making another face.
I'm innocent here.
They're going to be first place anyway, and a couple of players said this in interviews afterwards, where they actually think that it is really good if you're going for the 18-0 to get a game like this, where it's not we just messed up, brush off the loss. Really examine how you got beat, because this was a clash between 2 very good teams playing very well against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And as the saying goes, steel sharpens steel. You need that to actually make our region better. So I think it was a win for TSM for sure, because they get confidence. They beat the top 2 teams. Also a win for the league to have more contenders here, making it exciting.
Yeah, and it was just a super exciting game beyond like, high level, because you can have high level macro game where nothing's happening, but this was like fight. Everyone's nuts. Like we were popping off on the analyst desk just watching it. So like, if you haven't seen this game, just go watch it, because it was the best game of the split so far.
And I think a lot of people, kind of detractors from the win, I saw a lot of people talking about the Shen pick and kind of criticizing the Shen pick. And I do agree that like in isolation, it's a poor pick if you're looking at that 1v1. I think very clearly the Cloud9 plan was to survive lane and make things happen elsewhere. And TSM were able to preempt that by constantly attacking that lane. And they're able to do that because they got ahead in mid lane and they're having pressure there, and they're able to do these 3-man plays on top side, right? And they're able to attack and shut down Licorice in a way that I think other teams wouldn't have been able to. So I do think that they deserve credit for that, because if that lane is just Licorice down 10-15 CS and nothing other than that, and then all of a sudden he's ulting bot lane constantly and snowballing through there, then the game looks incredibly different. So I did think it was like a really good example of how to attack and shut down globals in this game, and especially when we have Talia and Pantheon coming out. I think that's even more relevant, right?
Right. I think it's also when people tend to look at a team's failed win condition and say, it's bad, instead of imagining what happens when it works out well. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not going to defend the Shen pick 100%, but like T9 has time and time again this season picked things with narrow win conditions, you could argue, and then succeeded and won on them. People go, wow, what a great draft. Camille Morgana is one that I bring up all the time, where it's like, if you lose that game and Niski like didn't pop off, you'd be like, what is this Morgana pick? Why is he on something more aggressive? Niski's so good at roaming. Why is he doing this? And then even the game that followed, they picked Talia Pantheon, which was criticized for TSM, your too early game, and then they slammed just like TSM did in the early game, but then they actually closed it out.
And I mean, the funny thing about that game is, I mean, they blasted Golden Guardians, don't get me wrong, right? That they did trash them, and they were up, 15, 16K more by the end, maybe even 20K by 30 minutes. Like, I'm sure gold lead. Some of those fights were actually kind of close. These were not like the fight is admittedly in the base and whatnot of Golden Guardians, but Golden Guardians actually started killing a couple people off in these team fights down 15, 20,000 gold. So you can see how, if you can't close cleanly with those types of comps, they can turn around just like it happened to TSM. So yeah, I mean, I do think it's always good to look at what was the intention behind the pick, whether or not it worked out.
Yeah, dive bot with Leona was the intention. Enemy team outplayed it. Doesn't make it 100% a bad pick.
Looking forward with Cloud9, they have locked that first place spot, and Blabber already immediately after the games tweeting out, all right, what should I play next? So I'm excited to see them with some more unique picks, testing some things. Do you think that Cloud9 will ever go with a super scaling for a late style strategy? Because they've clearly got this down pat, right? And I don't think that they should lose their way, deviating too much. Yes, you want to have more champions in your roster. You want to have more weapons that you can use. But I think the general way they play the game, I love it. It's very exciting, very fast paced. And I feel like they should just find more things that work in that theme.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't want to see them do a 180 and go like full hardcore scaling, but I also think that they have had enough difference between their games and their picks that it's what they're doing is fine. But I also have no problem with it's like Flickers thinks this is a great game for Kale. You can still do Kale and have the other picks be proactive around it, right? And I think that as long as you're taking into consideration what the team comp looks like and not just like a isolated 1v1 or whatever for a pick, then there's totally room for scaling stuff. And obviously they play a lot of scaling marksmen. We know Sven can play all that stuff. We know that, you know, Niski can bring out things like Cassio and Ori and those types of picks too, which obviously do scale really well. So I am happy to see them experiment, but I actually hope that they don't do like for fun picks. I actually like as much as it's like funny to watch for a moment. If they're losing, I want to feel like the team beat them and not they kind of like threw it away because they're paying like Garen and stuff, right? Like as much as people are kind of joking about that, myself included.
Garen's pretty broken right now. By
That's
the way.
true. Garen is pretty.
So I don't know about that example. My example of answering Blabber is a bad example because I answered Talon because after my attempt for it when they were like, oh, we're gonna buff the passive damage for jungle monsters. I was like, maybe if I kite it really well and no, that would be hard troll.
My answer would be like Sejuani. Play Sejuani, Blabber. He hasn't played it yet this split, and I think we're talking about scaling and things like that. What happens in best of 5 sometimes is like they're only winning on this pick. Let's break that up somehow, but we don't have any slots to ban, right? And so you get into these situations where you have to draft it away. And if you're playing late game team, you want to be able to take their picks away in other ways and be practiced on them. And so Sejuani is one that they haven't played yet. I want to see Blabber on some Sejuani. You can still be proactive. You can still make things happen. She has a lot of nice synergies with Aurelias and Aatroxes and stuff. So like go branch out while still being in the meta because there's things they're not playing right now that are highly prioritized by other teams. Yeah,
I like the takeaway point there. Also, I was mentioning Garen because Garen is the only champion that hasn't been played in LCS. Apparently, that was
ever
by the stats team. Yeah, it's apparently never been played in LCS, and it's the only one.
Wow,
pretty good.
Garen Yuumi, we didn't play it, huh?
Pretty good solo lane.
I guess
not this year. That's this year, right?
No, because I'm gonna have to double check on this tweet, but I at least the way I read it was that it was the only one that had never been played. So maybe we just never played Garen Yuumi.
Well, I'd have a hard time believing we played every other champ this split as well.
Yeah, it wouldn't exactly. So it wouldn't.
I remember Garen Yuumi though.
Really in
NA?
I don't think we ever played it.
It was an EU thing.
Let's find here.
All right, well, let's talk about Liquid while Azael's looking that up because
Garen is the only champion that's never been picked in the LCS. And then it says,
all right, Ramus, you have permission.
Ramus, Shaco, and Brand have never won in the LCS, but they've all gotten plays. Garen's never gotten to play.
Brand's never won?
Nope. And
He's
says
good for a period of time.
And then Lolly Sports stats.
I remember the Shaco play.
All I'm saying is that Garen bot lane was the big thing, and 4 of 7 LCS Brand games were played bot lane as well. So, wow, there's 7 Brand games, 0-7 in the LCS.
It was good for a little bit.
Yeah.
Does it say how many Shaco games? Because I only remember the Moon game. I got so hyped, and I was ready to do like
was terrible.
I was ready to do a whole day. I was gonna do a whole day on Shaco.
No, it doesn't say.
It was a big flop.
Doesn't say.
All right, give it another shot. Shaco's good again.
Garen first. Just get him in there.
Yeah. Garen first for sure. That's
do all the picks at the same time that need to win. How many? There's 4.
There was like Ramus, Shaco, Brand, and then Garen had never played, so they could get Ramus, Shaco, Brand, Garen.
Is try and get a W with all them at once.
Garen Yuumi bot. You got Shaco jungle, Ramus top, and Brand mid lane. Easy.
It's fun.
Sounded like a good team.
Fun. It's fun if both teams do compositions that are not the strict pro picks like that. Then it's fun, right? If you both have these scattered we're gonna try and get first timers. But they both try really hard with flavor picks.
Yeah.
Then those games are really fun to cast.
True.
Yeah. But you have to have both of them in.
Yeah. The weird thing is their last game's against TL, and that could be knocking them out of playoffs.
Yeah.
Good job, Mark.
There's your TL transition. I set you up. There's the layup.
We've been trying to get to TL for a while here.
My laptop's dead, so I'm letting you guys go.
Team Liquid. Nice excuse.
That's okay.
Team Liquid. The wheels fell off. This last weekend, right? It's been so up and down the entire season, and we should have expected it, I feel like, but just the individual players' inconsistency. A lot of people are going to look at Doublelift coming back in, and as nice as it is to meme, oh my God, Doublelift back, and Apollo gets a pentakill on them, and they just get trashed, and lose immediately, I'm looking at a lot of the other players, right? Core JJ, for a long time, MVP of the league, #1 support forever. He's making big mistakes versus Immortals. He's making mistakes that you also don't associate with this player because he always thinks so much about champion positionings, about his engagements, and yet in the river, when the enemy bottom lane is coming up for the Scuttle Crab, he engages with only Broxa next to him, and you see Broxa actually walk back on Olaf, imagining his hands in the air, like, what's going on here? As some of these moves for Team Liquid are just backfiring over and over. So Core JJ is going down, then Impact, the Zac into Renekton. Yes, I think you mentioned that they played it in solo queue and him and Broxa had success or something like that.
Yeah, I saw someone say,
or maybe it was Mark. Yeah. But he gets his passive pop, then teleports down to the bottom side, still engages after seeing the enemy teleport, and right onto a Gragas that can body slam him.
And he's low health.
And he's low health, and he has no passive. So a lot of mistakes from veteran players on this team that you can't necessarily pass the bill to Doublelift or to the members that are even changing on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think Doublelift was absolutely fine in that game. It felt like there was, to me, some pretty big draft issues, and there was also obviously individual play issues. I am someone that, like, as you guys know, I almost always am trying to play devil's advocate for draft because I just hate the idea of people just like purely blaming draft, and I almost always will argue against it. Yes, like draft to me is basically like putting weights on you, right? Like you're doing a 100-meter sprint, and every time you have a bad pick or a bad setup, it's like you could still win the race if you're faster, but you got 50 pounds on your backpack, and that's going to make it pretty hard, right? So like that's how I see draft. You can outplay that. Usain Bolt could probably be wearing a 200-pound backpack and still outrun me on a 100-meter sprint, right? Like, so that's still going to happen sometimes. But I feel like TL are putting the weights on big time in a lot of these drafts. You know, when I look at this last pick, Zac, I'm trying to think about, okay, you're thinking about the team fight and you're trying to survive the lane, but then you're picking it alongside Olaf, who like wants to have powerful lanes to play through. Olaf can't even challenge for the top scuttle because Renekton is roaming down. I don't think even with the Olaf, you're going to win the 2v2 against Gragas and Renekton. Like the Zac, jump in is so easy to reject from a body slam. So if Gragas is waiting in the bush, they don't want to go up there. So they didn't really even try, except like once or twice, kind of like a half-hearted try where so I was just backed up. So like that draft, I really didn't like. The last time Doublelift was in, I was thinking about, let me actually like find this exact game, but it was this game where he was playing Ashe, and they essentially only had this one form of engage, and they're playing against a poke heavy team. And I will find this right here. It was actually against EG, right? And it was where EG was playing Zoe and stuff, I believe. Yeah, it was the Zoe Ezreal game from EG with 3 frontliners, Ornn, Sejuani, and Braum. And they have, Elise and then Ashe and like, Core JJ on Tom Kench. And it got to this point where it was like, they need to try to find some way to force fights because they're just getting poked off of every dragon, and their only engage is Ashe, and there's 3 frontliners there, and it's just like never felt like it was going to work. And I feel like they're weighing themselves down so heavily in a lot of these drafts, and this is the first time I can remember in the last couple of years where I feel like TL's just drafting so poorly. Like they're giving themselves, of course you can win. You can win that game. You can win the Zac game where you survive and then just get to late game and out team fight them or something, but like, damn, I feel like they're going into every single game kind of handcuffed.
Well, yeah, and I think you can even look at that game and look at how it started too. Eika just killed himself in front of Jensen.
Yeah.
Lost his flash.
And his ignite after missing like all the farm.
Yeah. I was like, wow, that looks so bad. Game over. Like just from if this is Immortals, what they're playing at right now, TL's going to win this game. Then TL did nothing the entire rest of the game except take that like Ocean Drake basically and then lose fights. So yeah, the draft's not good, play's not good, and that's why I'm really thinking that TL's missing playoffs. They have a really hard strength of schedule remaining. They have a decently easy next week where they have EG and Golden Guardians, but then they have FlyQuest and C9 on week 9. And if they drop one game, they're going to finish 9-9 at best.
Yeah.
I mean, then you can easily miss from there. Never mind, Golden Guardians already has the head-to-head over them, so they really need to beat Golden Guardians.
Yeah.
if you lose to C9, you're at 9-9. Depending on how the rest of the team shake out, you might not even get a chance.
Yeah, 9-9 isn't even guaranteed to make it, right?
No, and that's assuming you can actually 3-1, which is even that's a large assumption.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and of course, like the second part of it is the play, right? I'm not trying to pin everything on draft, and we talked earlier a lot about some of the mistakes that they had made. I also felt like, Broxah was so inactive in some of these games where you're playing the Olaf, and even if the lane setups aren't there, it's like if you're going to be 0-0-0 on Olaf late in the game and kind of just farming, and it doesn't feel like that is the way to succeed. You have to be willing to take some risks and take some fights to try to get an advantage over Gragas, because Gragas has so much better playmaking than Olaf, right? Like, you need to scrap with people. You need to create advantages in that way. But they just aren't doing it. And it's like, I tweeted this out last night, but it's just been so sad to watch TL, because when I talked about earlier how it felt like a kind of like a good loss to watch for Cloud9. I mean, I'm sure Cloud9 fans don't feel like it was a good loss, but like for someone who just likes the league, TL is our 4-time back-to-back champions. If they're going to be dethroned, I want it to be in this like incredible best of 5 where I'm like, damn, TL, you were really good, but this other team, they were even
rose
better.
To your level.
Yeah, like they rose to your level and then they surpassed you. And instead, it's just like TL was up here and then they went, like they have just completely imploded and they have looked like garbage. We are past week 7 now. It's like roster issues, visa issues, everything aside, you have a veritable all-star team. You have enormous amount of salary and coaching staff and support staff and this huge training facility. They have everything working in their favor as far as those things go. And they kind of suck.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's really sad to watch.
Like I said, if make a bet, I would bet them not making playoffs.
Yeah. If they don't make playoffs, is that the biggest failure of any team in LCS history? Because to me, I feel like it is.
Yeah, I mean,
it certainly is the biggest downfall. 4-time back-to-back-to-back champions to not making playoffs.
And you just got a world finalist added to your team too.
Yeah, that's bigger than the TSM downfall. A couple years ago, not going from making finals the entire time to not making playoffs, because they literally won every single time with since franchising, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that exact example. That's the only one that's even close to my mind, is when the best bot lane in the West joined TSM or whatever. They still made playoffs, and they lost in quarters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is you're falling from a higher peak, and if you don't make playoffs, you've fallen even further. So it's hands down the worst fall from grace, I guess.
All right, let's get into some of the rising stars then. Who will take Team Liquid's place among the playoff teams? We asked this last week or the week before.
Easy, baby.
Markz joining the team.
I put them 4th in my preseason power rankings, and so
he still gets full credit.
I sold them.
No, he didn't choose them.
I totally backed off them very quickly through like week 2 and
sold
3.
them down the river.
Yeah, I was like, wow, they look way worse than I thought. They're not the 4th best team, and now that they're tied for 4th, I'm like, yeah, like I said,
never doubted them
right at the beginning. I'm about them. I like them. This is like what I imagined when I put them 4th initially, which was like, they're a little crazy. That's fine. You're down with that. Sven, Azael work well together. Jizuke can pop off. Bang's a safe player. And
Kumo's there too.
Kumo is a little bit of a question mark, but he's not like a complete detriment to the team that is insta losing you games every game or anything like that. He's not terrible. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this team's pretty good.
Yeah, the big things I was concerned about last time when we were trying to do this, and I was like, okay, if they can play together more cohesively, if they can actually get their game plan on the same page, then these players are going to be able to make playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. And that has been the biggest change. Bang is smiling in his interviews now. I mean, yes, winning does kind of cure everything. But they're also actually creating plays together. Jizuke talked about it in his interview as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he mentioned, why maybe he thought that it took them longer to get to this stage, it was pretty interesting because him coming from EU, where he was like, yeah, pretty much all the EU teams are in gaming houses still and all live together, and you just sit next to someone and you look over and you're like, oh, you want to go solo queue, or let's go eat, or let's go do that. That was actually something that he mentioned in maybe not bonding as quickly with the teammates. So I found that interesting, since there's been this big push in North America for
Facilities.
separation, and everybody, you know, needs stress relief to not be with the same people for their entire lives all day, every day, right? And work-life balance, and having offices to go to, and going back to your apartment, which is just another interesting perspective on it, I think.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it makes sense. You know, especially if you're moving from a completely different country and you have a different background, and you move here, the more time you spend with people, the quicker you're going to get acclimated, right? You know, that just makes sense. EG has looked really good, and they're also the one that just jumps to mind as far as kind of this grouping of teams that I think, you know, could really make a push. I've been very impressed by Jizuke, and as much as he has had some real head scratchers throughout the season, I almost want to say is the guy out of anyone in the league who feels like he has had some of the most solo carry performances, right? And I'd have to really go through and kind of sanity check that, but at the very least, there's like 3 or 4 of their wins that I'm just like, damn, Jizuke, that was you, right? And he's had some games where it's the losses too, but I just think that kind of player is really exciting, who is willing to take those huge risks, and when they work out in their favor, they have the skill and the ability to actually like, well, just means that they win now, right? That's really fun to watch.
If you're saying solo carry performance for any team, I would offer up Someday.
True. Someday's definitely
also
up
at
there.
7-7.
Yep. And that's the other team I was actually going to bring up is, as much as EG is the one.
Marcus loving his transitions. He's like, you want to talk about 100 Thieves?
As much as, you know, EG is the one that jumps to front of mind, 100 Thieves, four wins in their last 5 games. They beat Immortals, Dig, Evil Geniuses, and Golden Guardians. Basically all the teams that they're competing with, right? That does bode well. I have not actually dug into the strength of schedule for these couple teams, because that's what I was going to say. Like, I'm not seeing TSM in there. I'm not seeing Liquid yet.
They have C9, FlyQuest, TSM, and CLG.
Okay. So FlyQuest, TSM, and C9.
They need to win. They can beat CLG pretty possibly. That's their last game of the season.
Yeah.
And it feels like to guarantee playoffs at 9-9 does feel like where the cutoff's going to be ish for this split.
9 is definitely not guaranteed, but
but I feel like with tiebreakers and things, 6th place in playoffs this season's probably going to be 9-9.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can steal a win against C9, FlyQuest, or TSM, they have a decent chance of making playoffs.
Yeah, which I think is exciting for that team, right? And there was a lot of question marks about how good they would be or how long it would take them to get good with Ryoma. And
he popped off on the Zoe game.
Mm-hmm.
It's his best champ. We've all known it, but that was
that one play with the double flash.
Yeah, double flash, and he popped over the wall to make sure he popped back behind it instead of there was just a lot of really smart stuff in that play.
Yeah, definitely a really good performance. See if he can keep their spot, because technically right now they are in. But there's so much competition here. We already went over the Team Liquid. I think Golden Guardians is another one, even though they are a game behind. There's a shot there, right? They've been pretty good around, especially focusing on Rift-Tailed and Tower Gold early on in the game. I think this plays a lot off of closers' strengths, trying to get some of those early gold leads for them.
Mm-hmm.
They have been the lowest dragon percentage of all teams, which isn't necessarily now just like a straight bad indicator, right? It can be a choice to opt for gold and then just stop the soul, since dragons are worth less, which is, I think, an interesting strategy choice now. But
I would just like to see stats almost like dragon percentage and then like amount of souls given up or something. You know what I mean? Like something linked with that to be like, is that there's actually a correlation there? Because if you're giving up 2 for free while you take heralds and get gold, but the opponent never gets soul, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. And also you could be getting,
sorry to jump in.
66% of Drake control, which doesn't sound that high because you're giving up 2, but then I get 4.
Yeah. I think soul conversion would be a cool thing, like to be able to convert on soul point or something like that, or denial and stuff because like you're saying, if Golden Guardians have the lowest dragon percentage, but they have only given up like 2 souls, like average for most teams or something like that, then it's completely fine. The thing I was going to get to though was their bottom lane, right? Because that's obviously coming into the season was the main indicator, and that is a big is that heavily tied to dragon control. They switched in Huhi. You guys touched on a little bit in their game, but even when they were losing, Huhi was finding a lot of these engages that got them those kills when they're super far down, and does have good looks.
So that was reminding me because I actually wanted to talk about that and I'd kind of forgotten it in the bustle of the weekend with some of these upsets and whatnot. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm trying to phrase this way, but basically I just felt frustrated that Keith had been swapped out. And this is not performance based because Keith was one of the lowest performing supports in the league. I felt frustrated for Keith because coming into this split, as someone who's being role swapped for the team, you know, they release their content showing that, and Keith is even in that kind of like, you know, what are your expectations, right? And we had heard a lot, I felt, from Golden Guardians about giving Keith time to grow, and you know, that they were supporting him and they were behind him and all this stuff. And it's like, what did success actually look like for Keith? Because I felt that he did actually, even though he was still one of the lower supports in the league, I felt I saw improvement throughout this split. I felt he was getting significantly better from some of the early weeks where he's just like always dead on Tom Kench, like getting caught out solo and all these things. Like he had some pretty good games. He's improving. So it felt like the trajectory was there. So to see him subbed out kind of felt like, in what situation was this going to be a success for him, right? And that felt bad to me. It's not that I have a problem with Huhi coming in. I thought Huhi probably should have been the guy from the start. But then again, that just goes back to like, well,
what would have kept Keith in?
Yeah, like what were you doing in the first place if you were never going to keep him in, even if he's improving?
Yeah, and it's really hard to separate that because a lot of us thought the same thing at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Everybody right from the announcement was like, "Well, you know, what are you doing? Why aren't you putting Huhi in?"
Yeah.
But given the state of both players right now, and you say even admit that Huhi looked really good coming in, would you rather have them commit to the earlier choice of your reaction, be like, what are you doing putting Keith in? Okay, now you got to commit to it, or would you rather have them make the change now and say it's basically like them admitting the mistake of trying it in the first place? Because like you're saying, it's kind of ridiculous to ask Keith, okay, go swap in, and the only way you're going to stay in is if you instantly become like better than these support main players
who've been playing for years and years and years.
Yeah.
At a pro
because
level.
It does feel very unfair to Keith.
Yeah.
But also they're on the cusp for playoffs, so you want literally every single percentage increase in your chance to win.
So that's why I was trying to be careful about how I word it and saying I felt frustrated for Keith, right? And kind of at that situation, because I do understand it from the org point of view. If you think Hui's better now, then and your goal is making playoffs above everything, then too bad, Keith, right? We're going with Huhi. And that makes sense. But then again, that's just like, well, then you were just trolling from the start, and there was no situation in which Keith was going to be successful here. And you never should have swapped him. He should have stayed in Academy. Huhi should have been your support from the start. And it's not that I'm really offering a solution. I'm more just frustrated and feel bad because I just felt like, from the outside looking in, it seemed like Keith was making progress. It seemed like he was kind of filling his end of the bargain. And I know Nero did a sideline interview where he seemed generally like really kind of like a bit torn up about it. You know, he said this is one of the hardest decisions he had to make, because I'm sure they realized that too. But it's just like, damn, that sucks.
Well, here's why it bothers me is because there's like this really narrow window for how bad Keith is supposed to be without being too bad. Because if he's too good, which he was, like the problem with Keith is actually he didn't perform bad enough to keep his job. Because if they weren't in the hunt for playoffs, I'm serious. If this is the argument that like, oh man, we thought we weren't going to be a playoff-bound team with Keith in spring, and then we would be in summer, and then Keith is like, hey guys, I'm improving. I helped take down Liquid. I'm putting us in a position to make a playoff push. And then they're like, you did, but Huhi's better right now, so you're going to get benched for him so that we can actually make the playoff push.
That's a really funny way to look at it. I see your point, but it's a really funny way to look at it.
It sounds kind of weird to say, like, if you were a little bit worse and we were at
or
5 and 9,
or gets cut completely,
potentially,
right?
But then it's like, what was to this point? What is the success case other than I'm so good that we're definitely
you're randomly core JJ your first split?
Yeah,
right?
We need to be a positive win rate team with me in support, and I'm outperforming other people. If that's the success metric, that wasn't. I could have told you that.
I mean,
wasn't gonna happen.
They have a better record than TL. Compare those two, or they do, right?
They're supposed to.
Excuse me. I was thinking they were 7-7. They have the head-to-head, so they are tied. But just even the fact that they are tied, like that's shocking. Even just pretend Keith is core JJ and compare teammates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, okay, you're now Core JJ. These are your 4 teammates. Go out there and see what you can do. And Keith's like, all right, I did it.
Yeah.
I tied him.
And this is all from the Keith perspective, because if your teammates are like, we want to make a playoff push, or you know, who knows what's going on. Maybe scrims went really bad. So maybe Keith had a mental breakdown or something.
I understand it big picture. It's just more of like it's one of frustrated rant.
When you take a look at it from Keith's perspective, it's like, wait, because I did well enough to keep, like, I wasn't so bad that we're still in the playoff hunt. Now I get benched because I wasn't that bad. Like, if I would have gotten more stage time if I was worse. That's how it feels to me. It's
all right,
so ridiculous.
We're gonna have a Keith support group after this because we only have 5 minutes left. Since there's a hard cutoff today, we're gonna get right into Twitter questions. I know your laptop is off.
Do you want me to read this one?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is one that got a lot of interaction on Twitter. It says, do you guys think TL dropping Smithy, by TL dropping Smithy, they made the same mistake in TSM dropping Doublelift? And you actually responded to this, but it got a lot of interaction, so I wanted to bring it up again. And, you know, you said this on Twitter, but yeah, this is something I brought up right when I first heard the move. And it wasn't that it's supposed to be a one-to-one comparison. It was that I immediately got the same feeling when I saw, all right, most successful team in the league, TSM, dropping Doublelift, you know, for greater international success with Sven and Mithy, right? And I'm like, okay, I understood the thought process there. Didn't work. TSM went way downhill. TL, 4-time back-to-back-to-back champions, blah, 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 blah. MSI finals. All right, time to get rid of Xmithy for greater success. We already run North America. That's great. We want to win Worlds. We're going to get Broxa. And it just was like, damn, this feels the same. I had this big case of kind of deja vu, and we talked about it then. And yes, there are all these extra circumstances, the visa issues and lack of motivation, and there's all these other things. So it's never going to be a perfect comparison, but damn if it doesn't feel the same, and damn if it doesn't look the same.
And there's always going to be that pressure. If you're a team that's winning this much and ruling that much, and you decide to make a change, it is always going to be very risky, because by you simply deciding to make a change, you're giving up one of the top players in the league, because you're this dominant team. You're running it so hard. Anyone that you give up on your team to a competitor is going to be a very strong asset for that competitor. And that's why when the announcement came out, we were also like, man, maybe if they had gone super hard and the announcement was like, we're getting Clid, who just popped off at Worlds or something like that, then you can have maybe a sigh of relief with it or something like that. But I mean, this is LCS. We know drama. Another round of top team trades away important piece and then has crazy downfall.
I'm all about teams trying to get to the next level, though. I like it, especially after 4 times champions. They only had one international success, which was MSI. Their other MSI, they didn't get out of groups. They didn't get out of groups in the other 2 Worlds. So, like, yeah, make a change. And I think it is different enough from the TSM situation because of all the external factors that happened with the visa situation and stuff like that, that I'm not ready to call it a complete failure for the entirety of the year. Yeah, I agree. Spring Split's a mess. I think they should be better, even with the problems that they've had. It should be better, and it might be boomed, but I want to see what happens. If they don't make playoffs, I want to see what happens in summer before I write this team off completely.
It's still just so crazy, though, and looking at it again from the point of view of Xmithy, who has now 2-0'd his old team, and again, compare the rest of the roster alongside him, you know, that he's working with now, no one would think that would happen. That has got to feel so good for Xmithy.
You know what's even crazier? They gave up their positional coach, Poe Belter, who was going to sub in as jungle,
and he beat him
Poe
too.
Belter beat them too. You got to be looking there at Team Liquid and be like, oh man,
talent,
can't get a break.
Liquidation machine.
Nice. Nailed it.
We'll make it.
Yeah. Do you have some good Twitter questions there? I'm trying to scroll through.
We can do a real quick one. We have now 2 minutes left.
Okay.
SNES Chalmers 34 asks, is there anything that can be done for red side bans? They have to give away Ornn and pick Set, or they are hard stuck banning Ornn, Set, and Senna, and feels like they have zero room because of how powerful first pick blue side is. Sometimes things like this do emerge in metas. It's always a controversy for a red side. Does feel bad when this amount of power picks emerge that you feel like you have to permaban. There's always a trade-off, of course. Red side does get a hard counter pick. You have last pick for sure that you get to save. So it depends on the champions that are in the meta for how flexible they are. I will say, very happy to see Ornn on the nerf list for 10-5.
Yes, that's getting hit as well. But I think you can do clever things in draft, like setting up trades where they get the first pick choice, but then you usually get the other power pick. We've seen people do Aphelios for Set and stuff like that. Set for Ornns have happened at times. Blue side does have the ability to, when they see this coming at them, to ban out one potentially, and then you have to ban the last one. But by forcing that, if there's 4, by forcing them to ban one with their last ban, you then ban out the other one, and then all 4 are gone. Also famously, FlyQuest, when there was the Rengar LeBlanc Camille, there's a period of time where there was like super OP ones.
Didn't ban any of it.
Yeah, they just didn't ban any of it, and they just like made an insanely volatile game, and then they outplayed people in it. So like you do have choices on red side. I understand it's the more difficult position to be in, but you just gotta be more creative.
The Ziggs for CLG was always super famous for letting through super OP stuff, and CLG had a reputation for then losing to the super OP stuff, but like coming up with counters, like cast it in stuff.
Yeah, they play Nidalee into it.
The last little bit I would give is that I think that this is true of a lot of regions in the world, but when I watch LPL, in the past, when Blue Side was even considered like super mega OP and always had a way bigger win rate in EU, NA, Korea, LPL still had a higher red side win rate because the LPL, they are willing to take more volatile, more aggressive lane counter picks on red side. And, I think your point is the best one where it's like, red side is about these counter picks. Red side is about slamming lane. That's your advantage. They get the OP, but you get to see what you're playing against and pick the thing that slams the OP, right? And oftentimes we fail to do that. I mean, look at 2 examples this past weekend. Last pick Shen or whatever into the set, that is a losing lane.
Zach.
And last pick Zach into Renekton, that is a hard losing lane, right? What if they pick the Ornn and you now take this new like Fiora that has even better items on 10.5 and things like this, right? Like those are the kind of impact picks you want to see where it's like you get slammed because you blind pick something. And if something has nothing that beats it blind pick, then yeah.
That's why I said this really frustrating thing comes in when things are so OP that there is no, big lane counter pick. And oftentimes a lot of lane counter picks do come at a very high barrier of execution.
Then you just got to be the shy.
Exactly.
Problem.
So, there you go. Just the shy advice. That's going to do it. We have 0 seconds left on this episode. Thank you for us for week 8. Tune into the LCS 1:30 on Saturday. A boom. Finger stabs.
Instead of blasting.
Anyways, I start blasting.